In this project, we're going to start working with sprites for our video games that we're building in the course. We're going to be using Photopea, and we're going to be using actually a sprite from Super Mario Brothers, an 8-bit video game from the Nintendo Entertainment System, as our base. It's going to be a simple sprite. We won't be getting into a ton of detail, but we need to teach you how to use the tools first before we start doing detailed art. So once you have Photopea open, so photopea.com, we're going to start with a new project. And we'll name it Sprite. The width on this is fairly small. We're going to do 120 pixels by 160 pixels. And the DPI should be 72. You can leave the background white or set it to be transparent. I'm going to leave it white for right now. And I'm going to hit create. As you can see, it's a fairly small canvas to work with. So we're going to use the zoom tool, or Z on the keyboard. And I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to go up under View, and we're going to do Show Grid. Make sure Pixel Grid is on as well. But if we zoom in, we keep zooming in, you'll see we have a 1 pixel by 1 pixel grid. And in this project, we're going to be literally working pixel by pixel to build this. If you hold down the Option or Alt key on your keyboard, you'll get a negative sign. You can see the icon over here, and you can zoom out. Or you can come up here and click on the negative and zoom out, or the plus and zoom in. So that's how we use our magnifying or zoom tool. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. This grid's a little large, but it's okay. We can also do View, Show, and turn off the grid and just leave the pixel grid on. So now if I zoom in, Alt key, or the little circle with a plus, only the pixel grid shows. Now I like having both on. That's completely up to you. Some people do, some people don't. It just helps me with my layout. We have our background under layers. We're going to leave that alone, but we need to bring in our template. Now doing this from scratch the first time is tough, so we're going to use an image that's already been created. And so I'm going to do a File, Open in Place, and I provided a file called Mario Sprite 120 by 160. Double click, and it brings it in. Now this has been blown up some. You can see by the edges they're not solid, but it's good enough for what we're working with. We're just using it as a base to start from. So we have our layer now called Mario Sprite 120 by 160. We're going to be tracing over this. Now I'm going to zoom in some using the zoom tool so I can see the pixels. So now you can see every one of these colors sits inside 1 pixel. And this is why they call it pixel art, because we can literally go pixel by pixel adding color until we have our illustration. Now I'm going to lock this layer as well. So under your layers, there's a little lock. That way I don't accidentally move it or it gets deleted or anything like that. And I'm going to come down under my layers at the very bottom. There's a little new layer next to the trash can. I'm going to click once. This creates a new layer to start working in. I'm going to double click on the name layer, and we're going to call this head. We're going to break this up into pieces. So we're going to work on the head first, the body, and then the feet. Or the boots. You can see it's a pretty simple sprite. You'll also notice there's not a lot of colors here. There's really 1, 2, 3 colors. And that was a limitation of early sprites in games. There was only so much room on a cart or a cartridge. And so there was a lot of sprites involved. This is just one of many that need to be created. So reusing parts and reusing color was important. Now for this project, we're just using this as a base. We're going to try different colors. I want you to be creative. Maybe you get rid of his mustache or you add something different. I'm going to stick to pretty close, but I'm going to change the colors. Be creative. Try different things. So the tools we're going to be using today are the erase tool, the rectangle select tool, and the pencil tool. So we're going to start with the pencil tool. I'm going to select it. It's under the brush. And up at the top here, under our options, we could change the size of this. We want to go down to 1. And actually I find 2 pixels makes it a little bit faster to work, but I'm going to start with 1. Hardness needs to be 100%. Otherwise we'll get faded edges, and we don't want that. We want nice solid pixels. So size 1, hardness 100. Now I'm going to come over under my color. And I'm going to be choosing colors from here. Now we do have swatches. These are kind of built-in ones. There is a red that I'd probably start with, but I want you to choose colors, not just pick from swatches. Use the color picker here. And so we need a red. You can see, if you watch this little thumbnail up here in the corner, it will change. I like that red. Now if I start painting right on top of this, make sure you have a new layer, head. That's why I locked the sprite. It's going to be kind of tough to see what I'm doing with a red on red. So what we could do is select the Mario sprite, and I'm going to bring the opacity down to about 50%. Now when I select head, and I have my pencil tool, and I have it set at 1 and hardness 100, and I've chosen red, I can start painting this in. Take your time. Let go of the mouse while you're doing this. So like I'm drawing and I let go. If not, and you make a mistake, you'll lose everything. So if I accidentally go, oop, didn't mean to do that. You can do edit, step backwards, or control Z. Undo. You're going to learn that. Undo. You can see this is going to take a little while. But we're working in rectangular and square boxes here, right? So what I can do is take my selection tool, and using the pixels, I can draw a box, and you can see my selection fills this area here. I kind of missed the there we go. Whoops. See, I went too far down that time. There we go. See how it fills this area in? Now, as long as you're on that head, you can do edit, fill, or shift F5. And we'll fill with our red, our foreground color, because that's the color that's selected. Hit OK. You can see that was much faster than painting it in. And I could do that with the next line. And the next line. You can see this is going to take a little while, but we have to be patient. Especially if it's your first time. You're probably going to mess up here and there. That's fine. We can always go back and erase things and fix things. We're just trying to get the rough, large areas put in. And I can always go back to my pencil tool. Maybe I want those filled in red. So his hat's looking good. Now we want to put a yellow in here. He has like his little Mario logo. I'm going to go over into my color and find a yellow. And that looks good. And I'll use my pixels to fill this in. And this is where, once again, if you make a mistake, oops, edit, step backwards, or control Z. And I'm going to start using Control Z more here just to speed things up. But I could fill this in. And this can become a little tedious, but that's the way it works. So let's look at his head, his face, his hair, his ear, his eye, and his mustache. If you notice, the color of his hair, his eyes, and his mustache are all the same. And it's kind of this brown color. Well, Mario, I think, has black hair and black mustache, right? So we're going to change that. I'm going to come over and select black down here at the bottom. And I'm going to fill in. Whoop. See, I'm going to leave that little mistake there because we'll fix that. And we're going to have to do cleanup work. I'm going to fill this all in. You can see that's going to take a little while, so I'm going to go back to my rectangular select. And I'm going to do Edit, Fill. And Edit, Fill again. And I'll do the hair over here. Like I said, this takes a little bit of time. I'm going to go back to just using my pencil tool to finish this up. And there's his mustache. And his sideburns. And this is where the selection could really come in and make things better. Like I said, I know this could become tedious, but it is what we have to do. So this time, we're going to fill. And we're going to fill. Now for his eye, I think I'm going to stick with just the black. I could maybe add a little blue in there here later. But I'm going to grab my pencil tool. And let's fill in the eye. Now putting these on their own layers will help us later on. Because now I can just turn off his head or other parts. So that's what we have right now. Now we need to fill in the rest of all of these areas with a skin tone. So I'm going to grab something in the kind of the yellow oranges here. I'm going to leave this up to you. Find something that works. And now I need to fill in the rest of these areas. And if you have to, and you're better just painting it, go ahead. That looks a little off. What do you think? Yeah. I'm going to go a little darker on this. And we'll retry that. Ooh, that's a little too dark, isn't it? So it takes some time to find the right color. I'll go with that one just to speed things up. So now I'm going to fill in these larger areas. And as I'm working along, you should be filling everything out too. So I'm going to try to get this as close to being filled in as I can. I'm going to take my pencil tool now and finish up some of the detail work. And this is where on the pencil tool, whoops, see how I went into the red there? Control Z We'll fix that. You get the nose done here, right? And if you have to, bring down the opacity even more. That'll make it easier to see where I've missed. So don't draw on the locked layer. You can see I missed there. I missed all of this. Oh, I made a mistake. I'm going to leave that mistake so we can go back and fix it later. I went into his sideburn. Let's finish up his nose. And if you're having trouble seeing, you can always turn the eyeball off on the sprite to fill in the rest of it. Once again, I know this can be tedious. If you need a bigger pencil, you can go up to 2 pixels, and that'll help speed things up as well. And from this point on, I think I'm going to use 2 pixels. If you're careful enough, it will fill these in nicely. There we go. I'm going to change the opacity back to about 50% on the Mario sprite. So there we go. I have my head. Maybe just a little bit. Whoops. When this happens, I'm trying to draw on a smart object. We don't want to do that. I'll hit cancel. You got to have the right layer selected. There we go. So it's starting to look a little like Mario here, isn't it? Alright, so let's look at his body now. So I'm going to create another layer on top of head and make it body. And he has a blue shirt, I think, but I'm going to give him a blue shirt instead of this brown shirt. So I'm going to go grab a blue color I like. And this is a pretty rectangular area here. Now let's look before I'm going further. I do need to bring his head down a little bit right in this area. So I need to select this color again. If you grab the eyedropper tool and click on any of the pixels here, watch my swatch up there. It'll go back to the first color. And then I can fill this in. Make sure you're on the right layer, not the body layer, but the head layer. Otherwise, you'll end up with part of his neck on the wrong layer. All right. There we go. Oh, see how we had 2 pixels there and 1 there? Well, we'll fix those later. I'm going to leave those on purpose. Now, let's start working on his body. I'll grab that blue again. And I'm going to grab my rectangle select tool. I'm on my body layer, and let's fill in this area. So we'll do edit, fill. And I'm going to do the arms over here next. Fill. Let's do this side. I'm going to do the next group here. The next one. Or you can paint these in. Remember, I went up to 2 on my pencil size. It makes it a little bit faster. You gotta be a little more careful though, because you can go into the next pixels if you're not careful. Now we're going to have to make some adjustments later on. We're going to erase some pixels. We'll probably add a few in as well. You can see these aren't even, so I can even them up. And what I mean by that is the pixel count on each side. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That way we're even on both sides. So let's see what it looks like. It looks good. Let's get the red for his suspenders, or not suspenders, his overalls, I mean. So it should be the same red as up here. So I'll grab my eyedropper tool, click once. Now I've got the same red selected. I'll take my selection tool and I am going to fill in the red. I'll do the same on this side. And if you notice, it's 4 pixels across. This one's 5. 1, 2. No, they're both 5. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're good. Whoops. Edit, fill, or Shift, Command 5. So I'm going to do the same thing here, all the way down to the boot. Just so I don't have to. Now these should end on the same line. You can see they line up in there. So edit, fill. Let's fill in all of this area. And the middle area here. I usually use key commands for this, but I just want to show you. Let's get this whole kind of boot done, or leg, I mean. And do the same thing over here. Fill. Now I'm going to take my pencil tool and let's fill in the rest of this. Whoops. You notice I got 2 pixels there I probably don't want, but it's okay, we'll fix that. So that's 4 over. All right. That looks good. So let's get the hands done. So we'll grab the eyedropper tool and grab the skin tone that we had up here because we want it to match. I'm going to grab my pencil tool. And this is where bringing down the opacity can help us on the Mario sprite. And I keep doing that. I'm trying to draw on the wrong layer. Let's go back to body. Let's fill in the rest of this here. You can see I just drew over that little mistake I had there with the new color. this is 4 over. And I think we're pretty good here. And we'll double check our symmetry, making sure things are the same on both sides. Alright, and now we need to do the yellow buttons so on his overalls. So I'm going to grab the same yellow up here at the top. And I'm going to paint in our yellow buttons. But you know, one thing I am going to do, I'm going to go out one set of pixels on each side. Just make them look a little more round. There we go. And I'm going to bring the opacity back up just so we can kind of see the difference here. Actually, I'm going to bring it all the way up. And it looks like we need to get a little bit of red in there. And a little bit of red right here. I know it's a darker color, but let's do the red here. So let's go back to the head. And we can change where these heads and bodies are. I want the head to be on top so I can move them. But I want to do a little red right here. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool. Whoop, made a mistake. So Control Z, undo. And for this, I don't think I'm going to do the red. Well, let's see. What do you think? It's offset just a little, but it makes it look like it's kind of going over his shoulder. I'm going to leave that. And let's do his boots. So let's create another layer. And we're going to call this boots. I'll put it on top of the body because the boots need to kind of go over just in case. But we can always move that around. And I'm going to grab the same black that I have up here. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool and click anywhere. So I'm going to grab I can grab my pencil tool and I can just fill this in. Or probably a little easier to grab the rectangle selection tool. And I'm just going to fill it. And then I'll do the same thing over here. And I'll do the rest with the pencil tool. Till we get his boots done. And it looks like we're 4 pixels here and 4 pixels there. So we're really close on our layout. All right, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And remember, we can use the plus or minus up here and zoom out. And I'm going to turn off my Mario sprite layer. And look what we have. We have ourselves a sprite. It's a simple one. It's what we call an 8-bit sprite. But it is a sprite. It is almost ready to go. But now we got to do cleanup work. So I turned off the Mario sprite, our template. And I'm going to start with the head. And I'm going to take my pencil tool and go down to 1 pixel, not 2. And I'm going to start with that little mistake right there. So I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and grab the black. And that looks good. Anywhere else? I'm going to make that and this line here. Make it more like an ear. I'm going to add a little bit more here as well. So I'm adding a little bit of hair in the back here. That might be too much. Actually, what I think I need to do is get rid of this whole line. So we haven't done that yet. I'm going to grab my erase tool. And it's too big. Like if I start doing this, it's going to mess it all up. So we got to go down to 1 pixel, hardness. And you can see it removes them 1 pixel at a time. All right, the hat looks good. I'm happy with that. Ear looks good. The nose, we need to work on that. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool, grab the color. And I think what it is right here. This will change it, just these 2 pixels. And maybe getting rid of and I'm going to erase a couple pixels here. And this is where you can spend a lot of time just kind of working on this to figure out what you want. There we go. Now he's got like more of a little rounded nose. And I need to add 1 pixel back in here. There we go. All right, let's take a look here. His neck looks pretty good. I think we need to add 1 line of red right here. And so that was on the head. That's why I like having these in different spots. So right here, well, the other thing we could do too, I kind of like having that kind of offset. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool, select the red, and go 1 line over. And I'm going to do the same here. So it makes it look like it's offset just a little, so it's curving over his shoulder. So that looks good. Let's move down to the body here. And we did a pretty good job on symmetry. See, there's 4 pixels here, 4 pixels there, 5 and 5, 4 and 4, and then 5. If we look here, we are not even on this line. And I know it might be a little tough to see, but there's 1, 2. See, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's erase this line of pixels. I'm going to grab my erase tool. Erase that out. And then the same thing here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need to add a line of blue here. So I'll grab my eyedropper tool, my pencil tool, and now we're symmetrical on this, on both sides, even. This all looks good. Our hand, let's see here, we've got 4, 4. We've got 5 and 5 and 2 and 3 and 3. I did a pretty good job. Same thing on the inside here. And then down here with his boots. Looks like we're in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, his pants and boots look good too. So his pants go out a little past his boots. We got that little bit of a roll there. We got his hat. We got the yellow and his little buttons. So he looks pretty good. I can now go in here and add more detail a little bit here and there, but we're sticking with the 8-bit just to get you started. This was really about getting you to use these tools and making sure these tools work. So we covered the pencil tool and how to change it up at the top with the size and the hardness. We showed you how to use the eyedropper tool and the color picker to pick colors and to select colors from an existing palette on the page. We could create swatches as well, but I wanted to do it this way just so you get practice. We've got all of our layout here. We also showed you how to turn on your grids and pixel grid to work pixel by pixel. And we also went over how to use your rectangle select tool, M. Now I'm going to zoom out. There's our Mario. And if we zoom really far out, you can see, and I'm going to turn off the guides now, or the grid. And there's our Mario. Very 8-bit, but we know who it is by looking at it, right? It's Mario. Now, I'm going to turn off the background. So I have my Mario sprite turned off and my background turned off. So all I have is my sprite on a transparent background. I want you to save as PSD. This will download your sprite as a Photoshop document so we can open it later. But now we need to save it into a format that we can bring into our game builder or anywhere else. So I'm going to do a file, export as PNG file. So we leave it, everything looks good. Format, width, height, we're good. It's a tiny file. We'll hit save. And this is the PNG file that you can bring into your GameFruit or your other programs that you're using to build your games, to test it out. Because we set it as a transparent background, we turned off the background. This will allow the background in your game builder to show through. So you've built your first sprite. It's a simple 8-bit sprite. Even with the color palette, it isn't true 8-bit, but it's close enough. I wanted you to get started. This is the next step. We're going to get into animated sprites in the next set of videos. And so we're going to need to make him walk, and we're going to add more detail and things to your sprite that you've built.